Stop sitting around like you're sick and get to work. With that, my brother-in-law Anthony, who had drunk too much, hit me in the stomach even though I was pregnant, which should never have happened. This was during a visit to the in-laws' house. Ouch! Please stop! Not the stomach! I instinctively protected my stomach and glared at Anthony, hitting me while knowing I was pregnant. This is not something that can be forgiven just because he had been drinking. I had tolerated Anthony because he was part of Thomas's family, but I can no longer forgive this outrageous act. It was when I had made up my mind. What are you doing? My mother-in-law Rachel shouted in a voice I had never heard before. The next moment, the usually gentle expressions of the in-laws changed. Discipline is needed. What? Yes. Time for some re-education. My in-laws Rachel and Kevin said in a voice lower than usual, and I was surprised. I am Sarah, 32 years old, married for 5 years. I work in the office of a major trading company. My husband, Thomas, is 2 years older than me and the ace of the sales department at the same company. So, it's a workplace romance. Thomas is the middle child of 3 siblings, with an older brother and a younger sister. I quickly became good friends with his sister, Samantha, because our names were similar. Sarah and Samantha, you guys are like twins. We laughed at Thomas's words when I was first introduced. I always wanted a sister since I have 2 brothers. Can I call you Sarah? Of course. Nice to meet you, Samantha. We hit it off right away and have been close ever since the wedding. Samantha works for a foreign company and moved to Japan 2 years ago. Although I knew she could be transferred abroad, my mother-in-law Rachel seemed lonely when the orders came. I was lonely too, but in this era of video calls and the internet, it's not so bad. I showed Rachel how to video call and forwarded her photos from Samantha, which she was very happy about. Thank you, Sarah. We don't really understand all this talk about Instagram accounts and stuff. It's truly a convenient era. Her company takes proper vacations, so she'll come back several times a year. Something to look forward to. Yes, indeed. Make sure you and Thomas come over then. Will do. The in-laws' house is just a 30-minute drive away, and we visited several times a month. Kevin is taciturn and Rachel loves to chat, seemingly opposites, but both are calm and kind, and our relationship with them is good. With Samantha around, visiting the in-laws' house was not a burden but a pleasure. Except for one thorn in my side. My brother-in-law, Anthony. Anthony claims to be an illustrator and is always at home. He once worked at a design office years ago but quit, and now he only gets work occasionally. In reality, he's almost unemployed. In other words, he's living off his wealthy family, which honestly, as an adult, I find, well, it's not my place to say. Kevin and Rachel can afford it, and according to Thomas, Anthony was pampered because he was frail with asthma as a child. Anthony is a bit sensitive and has been weak since childhood, so he's always been at home. But he's kind, so please get along with him. Sure, of course. At the beginning of our marriage, Thomas told me this, and I genuinely agreed, interacting with Anthony normally. My first impression of Anthony, when I greeted him, wasn't bad. The painting at the entrance was done by Anthony, right? Wow, that's amazing. I'm totally not good with art, so I admire that. When I said this with a smile, Anthony looked at my face. Yes. That one hanging there, I painted it too. Oh, this animal painting. Wow, that's great. Thank you, Sarah. I've always been bad at art and craft, so I genuinely admire people who can draw. It was just that, but Anthony seemed very pleased with my words and talked to me about his paintings. Since then, whenever Thomas and I visited the in-laws' house, Anthony would join in the family time. It seemed normal to me, but apparently, Anthony often stayed in his room, so Kevin and Rachel were happy to see him enjoying himself. Sarah has brought a new breeze into our home. And she gets along with Samantha too. Please continue to be good to both siblings. Yes, I'm really happy to have a brother and sister since I'm an only child. Everyone smiled at my words, and I was genuinely happy to have joined such a wonderful family. Anthony became increasingly cheerful, and every time I visited, he showed me his paintings. However, during the summer of our second year of marriage, something happened when we visited the in-laws' house. Sarah, I have a new piece. Come see my painting. Ah, yes. What do you think of this new work? It's the sea, right? The gradation of blue is beautiful. I answered vaguely because I don't understand art, but Anthony's face lit up, and he grabbed my arm. You really get my work the best. Sarah, you're my muse. Shall we draw together? I'll teach you. I was wearing a t-shirt and was surprised when he grabbed my bare arm. Did he just call me his muse? What? No, I'm not good at drawing. It's okay, I'll teach you. And we'll keep it a secret from Thomas. He said, coming closer and staring at me. No, isn't this odd? What's the secret? No, thank you. I'm really not good at drawing. I'll be going back now, I said, maintaining a smile as best as I could, and then I ran back to the living room. Sarah. Mom's making tea. How was Anthony's illustration? Yeah. It was good. I replied to Thomas, trying to sound nonchalant, but my heart wouldn't calm down. I was shocked. Anthony seemed odd. Was that his way of showing interest? In me, his brother's wife? He always seemed happy when I praised his paintings, but I never thought. Anthony doesn't interact much with people outside because he's mostly drawing at home, so maybe his sense of personal space is a bit off. Sarah, do you want tea? Oh, what's wrong? No. Rachel, let me do it. Then could you make coffee for me? Yes. I calmed myself while smiling at Rachel, who was thanking me. It's not like he confessed his love or anything. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. He just invited me to draw, and maybe he got excited because I praised his work. It would be rude to Anthony, Thomas, and even Kevin and Rachel if I misunderstood Anthony's intentions, and I don't want to cause trouble in our good relationship with the in-laws' house. I decided not to worry about it. But that night, I received a text from Anthony. Sorry about today. Thomas was there, you had to say no. Come by yourself next time. Huh? I read the message again. I didn't quite understand it. Not sure how to respond, I didn't reply. Honestly, I had forgotten about it. But a few days later, another text came. When will you come? I have a painting to show you. If you want to meet outside, I'm willing to go out. I'll take you to the art museum. How should I interpret this? It could be seen as a date invitation, but he's Thomas's brother. And he's somewhat of a recluse. It's good that he's willing to go outside, and Kevin and Rachel would be happy about it. I'm busy and can't go to the museum, but we'll visit the in-laws' house again with Thomas. Let's all have dinner together. I thought it was troublesome, but I couldn't just ignore it. I replied casually, emphasizing that I'm the wife of the brother. Anthony didn't reply to that, and I felt relieved. However, after that, Anthony's behavior towards me changed. He used to greet me warmly at the in-laws' house, engaging in conversations and showing me his paintings, but he started to ignore me completely. When we passed each other in the hallway or ended up alone, he glared and muttered, dishonest woman. Playing with men. I was startled and looked back, but he was already gone. Recently, Anthony has stopped talking to you altogether. He's been gloomy at home. Do you know anything? I was asked by Rachel while we were in the kitchen and felt a jolt. No, nothing in particular. I quickly smiled and brushed it off. Really? Just when he was starting to brighten up, he's going back into his gloomy phase. Anthony's sensitivity can be quite troublesome. Oh dear. I could only vaguely nod in response to Rachel's words. Meanwhile, I received texts from Anthony. The messages varied, from insulting words to wanting to meet just the two of us. Perhaps he's mentally unstable. I couldn't tell Thomas, so I didn't reply to avoid provoking Anthony any further. However, as the stress built up and it became harder to visit the in-laws' house, an event happened that made all of that seem insignificant. I was pregnant. Both Thomas and I had wanted children, but it had been difficult to conceive. We had undergone tests after turning 30 and found nothing abnormal, so we were just starting to consider treatments, making the news incredibly joyous. Thomas and I embraced each other happily. Fortunately, my morning sickness was mild, but considering the future, I informed my immediate supervisor and colleagues early on. Knowing how much I wanted a child, my colleagues were as happy for me as if it were their own good news. Completely forgetting about Anthony, I was engulfed in happiness. I told Thomas's sister Samantha through WhatsApp. Despite her overseas assignment, we kept in touch frequently, and Samantha was thrilled for us. Since I couldn't come back for Christmas because the flight tickets were too expensive, I'm planning to return on the next long holiday. I'll be able to stay for about a week, so let's take our time and catch up. I'm so happy you're coming back. Rachel and everyone will be delighted. We'll all be waiting. Then, on the holiday when Samantha was scheduled to return, Thomas and I visited the in-laws' house. Welcome. How are you feeling, Sarah? Come inside quickly, it's cold. I'll make some caffeine-free herbal tea. Thank you, I'll do it. No, sit down. The morning sickness has subsided, so I'm fine. But you're busy with work usually. Take it easy when you're here. That's right, Sarah, relax. Thank you. Kevin and Rachel were very happy about the pregnancy and looked forward to the grandchild's birth. I decided to bask in their kindness. Then Anthony walked in. It had been a while since we last saw each other. Anthony. Samantha is on her way here from the airport. Long time no see, Anthony. I greeted him normally, trying my best. Having been blessed with a child, I felt a strong, warm sentiment, thinking it was best to just get along as a family. Yeah. Anthony glanced at my stomach for a moment before heading to the kitchen where Rachel was. Oh, Anthony. I'm making tea, but would you prefer coffee? I'm having beer. What? Oh, right. Let's toast to celebrate the grandchild's arrival. Kevin said cheerfully. You too? I was thinking of toasting in the evening, but well, okay. Rachel said with a laugh, and the men toasted with beer while Rachel and I had herbal tea. Do you know the baby's sex yet? No, not yet. We might find out at the next checkup. How exciting! While talking with Rachel, I noticed Anthony from the corner of my eye. He was drinking with Thomas and Kevin, seemingly at a fast pace. Anthony, aren't you drinking too much? Save some for the evening. Samantha is coming back too. Shut up, I want to drink. Hey, Sarah, bring some snacks. What? suddenly called out. I looked at Anthony with a puzzled face. I remembered Thomas mentioning that Anthony doesn't handle his alcohol well. Hey Anthony, you're already drunk. Don't call her over. Thomas chided with a wry smile and spoke to me. Sarah, it's okay. We still have some snacks. Okay. Not good enough. Come on, bring them over. What kind of wife does nothing? Anthony, you know Sarah is pregnant. I told her to sit. Rachel called out from the kitchen. Pregnant. Ah, right. Then Anthony suddenly stood up and approached me. Messing around and then getting pregnant, huh? Whose child is it? Excuse me. What the hell? Thomas and I exclaimed in unison. I was dumbfounded by Anthony's words. Unacceptable. Just as I was about to speak. Anyway, since you're not sick, stop sitting around and get to work. With that, Anthony, who was drunk, did the unthinkable and hit me in my pregnant belly. Ouch! Please stop. I instinctively protected my stomach and glared at Anthony. Damn it! Thomas always getting all the good stuff. Ow, ow! Stop! Not the stomach! Anthony, what the hell are you doing? Thomas rushed to stand in front of me in a panic. Despite my shock and fear at Anthony's sudden change, I felt a growing anger within me. Hitting me while knowing I was pregnant, and just because he had been drinking, was unforgivable. I had tolerated his actions and texts up until now because he was Thomas's important family member, but I could not forgive such an outrageous act. I didn't care if it ruined my relationship with Kevin and Rachel. It was at that moment I decided. What are you doing? What? A voice louder than I had ever heard before rang out. It was Rachel. What did you just do to Sarah? In the next moment, the usually gentle expressions of Kevin and Rachel changed. Discipline is needed. What? Yes. Time for some re-education. Rachel and Kevin said in a voice lower than usual, and I was surprised. Rachel? Sarah, step back. As Rachel pushed me behind Thomas, the next moment, there was a sharp smack. Ow, ow! My hand hurts more. The always graceful Rachel was in a tremendous rage. Indeed, her hand also looked painful. There was a really good sound. Anthony was holding his cheek, looking stunned. What are you doing? Mom, you always takes my side, right? Dad too. Kevin and Rachel sighed sadly. As a child, you had severe asthma and couldn't do many things compared to your lively younger brother and sister, missing out on your youth. We felt sorry for you and spoiled you, but it was a mistake. What? That's right. We will not take care of you anymore. Leave this house, pay your own rent and living expenses. What? Why me? Why am I being kicked out? It should be this woman leaving. Sarah is our precious son's wife. Plus, our grandchild will be born soon. We want her to continue coming to this house without worry. You're the one who should leave. Rachel! Damn it! I'll sue. Punishment for the slut who played with my feelings. That's fraud. Anthony was incoherent, beyond comprehension. You'd be the one getting sued, Anthony. A firm voice echoed. What? Samantha! Samantha! I texted, I'm almost home, but no one replied to my WhatsApp. I come back to find this happening. I heard everything. Sarah, is your stomach okay? Samantha, welcome back. Sorry we couldn't greet you properly. That's not important. Saying that, she glared at Anthony fiercely. Remember I told you my boyfriend is a lawyer I met in Japan? What? Assaulting a pregnant woman is a crime. What? Anthony's face turned pale. Haha. What's the big deal? We're family. I was just drunk and fooling around. Fooling around! What if something happened to the baby in my stomach? I raised my voice involuntarily. Samantha stepped in front of me protectively. Family or not doesn't matter. Stalking and attempted assault are taken very seriously these days, so be prepared. Samantha's clear statement, with the backing of her lawyer boyfriend, was very persuasive. Anthony was pale as a ghost. It might be hard to sue for just being hit a few times in the stomach, but it was enough to scare the naive Anthony. Stalking? Don't lump me in with those people. Thought you could do whatever because Sarah wouldn't tell anyone, right? Sure, Sarah kept it to herself for Mom and Dad's sake. But she confided in me. What? Anthony's face contorted. I know everything you did, and all the texts are saved. Texts? Thomas looked puzzled. Sending texts to Sarah when Thomas was not around, starting with hitting on her and then turning to harassment when rejected. What? Thomas and Kevin exclaimed in unison, and Rachel pressed her temples painfully. I don't know if it was when you were drunk, but some of the content was pretty bad. I advised her to keep it as evidence. And to keep a diary with dates of when you harassed her, on advice from my lawyer boyfriend. No way! Do you realize how much stress and pain you've caused Sarah? No, I mean, it's because Sarah seduced me. Don't you dare call her name. Thomas's voice changed. This time, the anger was real. And its intensity made even me flinch for a moment. Anthony used to stay cooped up, but he seemed to enjoy talking with Sarah. I genuinely thought our family was growing and Anthony was getting better. What are you doing? Then he turned to me and bowed his head. Sarah, I'm sorry. It's my fault too for asking you to get along with Anthony. You couldn't talk about it, right? Thomas said with regret, and Anthony, trembling, lashed out in frustration. So, why is it always you? Just because you're my younger brother doesn't mean you can be so arrogant. Always surrounded by friends, having girlfriends. Why can't you just let me have this woman? Sarah likes me, she approached me. What are you talking about? I felt dizzy with anger. That's enough, Anthony. Oh, you finally get it? No. We're done. You're no longer a brother or family to me. What? Samantha, introduce me to your lawyer boyfriend. Of course. What? Wait a minute. Suddenly, Anthony started to panic. It's clear from the texts that Anthony was the one who approached Sarah, and his actions were borderline stalking. But and hitting Sarah in the stomach while she's pregnant is absolutely unforgivable. It's a serious assault. I can't forgive that above all else, Rachel said firmly. Facing the cold stares from the entire family, Anthony suddenly yelled at me. What the hell? It's all your fault. What do you mean? What now? Anger made my voice come out lower than usual. Anthony sighed dramatically before saying, It's because you seduced me. After leading me on like that, to play around and then discard me, what a villainess. This villainess. Everyone, not just me, was dumbfounded by Anthony's nonsensical accusation. What are you talking about? I never once seduced you. Come on, don't pretend you've forgotten. You praised my paintings so much, saying you liked them and admired them. That was about your art. What? I only praised your art. I never said I liked you. Anthony was shocked. Him being so surprised was shocking to me, considering it was all his own delusional thinking. Always smiling and coming closer, saying my paintings are wonderful. And you were always looking forward to them. How is that seduction? I can't draw, so I simply thought your skill was amazing and expressed my admiration. And if my husband's brother says to look at his paintings, what else am I supposed to say? So that's... Anthony was at a loss for words. That's exactly how I feel, wanting to be at a loss for words. You're right, Sarah. Did you really misunderstand her praise as personal affection? Besides, Sarah is my wife. Thomas's perfectly reasonable words made Anthony bite his lip in frustration. Anthony, you left your last job because you were accused of misogyny and stalking by female staff, right? What? It was the first time I heard about it. The way they made a fuss was certainly extreme, and you always being sensitive became depressed. Our family believed you sighed and worried about you. So that was the story. That would explain why they hadn't mentioned it to me. Now I wonder if we were right to believe you as our son. Kevin frowned sadly. That's right. Sarah was trying to get along as family, and Anthony seemed brighter, so we were watching over him. And you were harboring such thoughts, approaching the wife of your brother. Rachel was trembling with anger and shock. Supporting her shoulder, Kevin murmured in a low voice. Leave. What? Just like Rachel said. Leave. We won't help you anymore. What? Wait. The occasional art jobs you got, Rachel and I pleaded on your behalf. We won't do it any longer. What? Wait a minute. Me too. Thomas continued in a cold tone. What? When there were projects with illustration work, I'd refer or recommend you, right? But not anymore. What? Wait. I'll even tell my contacts to avoid dealing with you. I'm sorry for having involved them with such a person. What's that supposed to mean? You always looking down on me. Stop it. I stepped in front of Thomas, who Anthony was about to grab, and glared at him with all my might. Sarah, stay back. I'm fine. My intensity made Anthony step back. Thomas doesn't look down on you. He cared about you. So did Kevin and Rachel, right? A grown man, living under his parents' protection, never showing gratitude, only engaging in despicable behavior, how pitiful. At my words, Anthony collapsed to his knees, groaning. And of course after that, Anthony was kicked out of the house with nothing but the clothes on his back. He tearfully agreed to a condition not to involve himself with me or the family, not to stalk or harass, in exchange for us not filing a report for the violence. Through Samantha's boyfriend's connections, we got a lawyer to draft a document which he signed. Anthony pleaded to be allowed to stay in the house, but Kevin and Rachel would not hear of it. Later, he attempted to find work in illustration through old connections, but due to the manner of his departure, no one would employ him. He ended up working at a construction site with lodging, but reportedly, due to his uselessness and high pride, he was often disciplined by the robust men and the young workers alike. He brought it all upon himself. It's good for him to learn the harshness of society firsthand. And 6 months later, in my arms now sleeps a beautiful daughter. This precious life that was safely brought into the world. Is she asleep? Yes. She really does have the cutest sleeping face. I've prepared the baby bed in the other room. Shall we put her down? Mom's preparing some tea, so why don't you take a break while she naps? Samantha smiled as she said this. Thanks. Hey, did you decide on the dress you were indecisive about? I want to hear about it. Oh, yes. Want to see the photos? I'd love to. Samantha, who has returned from abroad, is now preparing for her wedding with her lawyer fiancé. We continue to be as close as real sisters. With Anthony gone, visiting the in-laws' house has become a place of comfort, and Kevin and Rachel are overjoyed with the birth of their grandchild. Sarah, I'll take her to the baby bed. Thomas came over and gently lifted our daughter from my arms. Thomas, too, is utterly enamored with our long-awaited child, to the point where I worry he might become too soft of a father. Having something to protect has brought out a new strength in me. At the same time, I find myself feeling a renewed sense of gratitude towards my own parents and in-laws. As I raise this child, I realize I'm also being nurtured. In the realm of parenting, I'm starting from zero just like her. One cannot live alone. I want to remember this and be someone who values both themselves and those around them. As I watched my child's sleeping face, a smile naturally came to my face. At your age, with no position of responsibility? Someone as incompetent as you is not needed in our company. I have prepared a termination letter, and we will pay severance. Pack your things and leave immediately. I silently endured the president's abusive tirade. Arguing with such a person is futile. Understood, I am terminated. I calmly stated, quickly packed my belongings, and left the office. To an outsider, I might appear as a defeated loser at the mercy of the president, but I had already grasped her vulnerability. I am Caroline, 48 years old. Most women my age are married, with grown children or even becoming grandmothers, but I am still single. I have had my share of romantic relationships, but simply, I never ended up married. Not that I completely lacked the desire, but with a fulfilling job and wonderful colleagues, I was content. However, a drastic change occurred a few months ago. My company is family-run, with executive roles filled exclusively by the chairman's relatives. The chairman's son, daughter, their spouses, all held sway. This didn't mean that we, the non-relatives, were treated poorly. Indeed, it was possible for us to climb the ranks. The chairman's charismatic leadership kept the company well-knit, and we had no major complaints. In fact, the bond among colleagues was strong, and we worked together daily with united effort. But when the chairman suddenly passed away and his son took over as chairman, the company faced an unexpected turn. The new president was Helena, the chairman's daughter. She was previously unknown to the company, and many of us were shocked that such an outsider was appointed. However, we learned she had been quite successful in her previous job at a top-tier company and joined ours at an opportune time, which made us somewhat understand the decision. At 38, Helena was also single, and my colleagues speculated about her character, perhaps a dedicated career woman or a tough, cold person. However, her appearance at the inauguration was the complete opposite of our expectations. She looked more like a club hostess with high exposure, teetering on thin high heels and dangling large earrings. The strong perfume was noticeable even from a distance, causing many to grimace. Her speech, impacted by her appearance, felt shallow and lacked a sense of commitment and passion for the company, leaving me with a sense of unease. But worrying wouldn't help. Focusing on the work at hand, I tried to shake off the inauguration's aftermath and settled into my tasks. However, not long after, Helena, our president, unexpectedly visited our department. Tension briefly spiked, but she ignored everyone and made a beeline for a colleague, Cecil, announcing, "I like you. You stood out at the ceremony earlier." Cecil, such a cute name. "How about joining me for lunch to celebrate my appointment?" Cecil turned pale and was frozen. Not just him, everyone there lost their words and stood like statues. What was the president even saying? That was the atmosphere. "Oh, don't look so surprised. Shocked to be invited by the president? I find that quite endearing," Helena continued before grabbing Cecil's arm, intending to leave. Cecil interjected, "Please wait. I appreciate the offer, but I have urgent work to finish this morning. Could we possibly wait until break time?" It was barely past 10 a.m. Too early to abandon work for a lunch outing. "Is your work really that urgent? If so, someone else can handle it. Lunch with the president is far more valuable to you. I'll teach you what to prioritize," she insisted, pushing Cecil along despite his reluctance. By the time they returned, it was past 2 p.m. Cecil, 38, divorced a few years back and now single, was admired for his refined looks, growing more handsome with age. Many female colleagues harbored secret crushes on him, rejoicing at his divorce as it meant he was back on the market. While Helena's fondness for Cecil might be understandable, her behavior was unbecoming of a president. It was a revealing day, highlighting Helena's true character. To make up for the morning's disruption, Cecil ended up working late, a consequence of Helena's actions that benefited no one. "Cecil, I've reserved a wonderful French restaurant for us today. The one with the chef I mentioned before. We better hurry or we'll be late." Helena would often appear, forcibly taking Cecil out for lengthy lunches. "Cecil, you look so dignified while working. What are you working on now?" As this became a regular occurrence, she began occupying the seat beside Cecil, disrupting his work with her chatter. Colleagues displaced by Helena struggled to complete their tasks, often resorting to overtime. Gradually, a simmering discontent towards Helena grew among the staff. While no one dared to voice their frustrations openly, it was clear that everyone shared the same sentiment. When exactly does Helena perform her presidential duties? It seems like she's not taking her job seriously at all. That's the look my colleagues and I shared as we watched her. I was busy helping Cecil and others with their work and overtime. While assisting Cecil one day, I tried to lighten the mood. "Cecil, you've really been put through the ringer. It's tough being targeted by the wrong person," he responded apologetically. "I'm so sorry for causing everyone trouble. I really appreciate your help, Caroline, especially since you have your work too." Cecil blamed himself for the situation. "It's not something you need to apologize for," I said. "It's all because of that out-of-touch president." Honestly, what was the chairman thinking, making Helena president? But keep that between us," I joked, sticking out my tongue, and Cecil gave a weak smile. It had been a while since I'd seen him smile. In fact, I realized that smiles had been rare in our department lately. How long would these days continue? The mere thought weighed heavily on my mind. Determined to break this cycle, I decided to consult someone about it. Carl, the chairman, and Helena's father. When I joined the company, Carl was the executive vice president and we occasionally chatted. Now as chairman, our interactions had ceased, but I boldly went to see Carl and frankly discussed Helena's problematic behavior, knowing it might be impertinent. He was a dignified man, a son of the previous revered chairman. I hoped he would understand the employees' struggles, but Carl's response was dismissive. "I'm not here to listen to such complaints. You are to follow President Helena, work for the company, and earn your salary. That's all. It's simple. And with that, he sent me away. I realized then, Carl, who had appointed Helena as president, was just another fool. Disappointed and furious, I felt a surge of anger. The next day, Helena came again to invite Cecil to lunch, but our department was bustling with a crucial project deadline. Amidst the tense atmosphere, Helena's presence only fueled irritation, and some of my colleagues couldn't hide their annoyance. I'm sorry, I really can't leave my work today. Could you perhaps dine alone? Cecil tried to decline politely. Helena insisted. It's fine, someone else will cover for you. Hey, you there, take over Cecil's work. Unbelievably, Helena approached me and said that. Right now, both I and Cecil are swamped with work. No one in the department had the capacity to take on additional work. I'm sorry, but that's not possible, I firmly replied, to which Helena widened her eyes in disbelief. What did you just say? I heard you say you can't. Despite momentarily faltering under Helena's stern gaze, I knew I had to speak up. I said it's not possible. Cecil's tasks today are critical, and I also have a pile of my own work to complete. Taking on Cecil's responsibilities is simply out of the question. Every time you pull Cecil away, our department's progress stalls, affecting the company's performance significantly. As president, you must be aware of this. We're even getting complaints about poor responsiveness from clients, and we're losing credibility. If this continues, we'll be overtaken by our competitors. I had let out my frustrations, but there was no turning back now. Do you even know who you're talking to? You know what happens when you speak against the president, right? Helena's voice, so different from the sweet tone she used with Cecil, was filled with intimidation as she retorted. I'm speaking out of concern for the company. We're all striving to improve performance. I can't comply with actions that will hinder our success. We need Cecil at his desk right now. There was so much more I wanted to say, but I carefully chose my words, remembering she was still the president. Is that all you have to say? I'm shocked to find such a lowly employee among us. Helena sneered, snatching my employee badge to read my name. Caroline, huh? It figures you'd say such vulgar things. You're going to regret what you did today. Then, turning sweetly to Cecil, she said, Cecil, let's try again tomorrow. I'll book an Italian place. My mood's been spoiled by this silly little scene. With a fluttering wave, she left the department. As Helena disappeared, applause erupted around me. Colleagues praised me, saying how refreshing it was and how cool I'd been, but I didn't feel relieved. Helena's words weighed on me. I knew this wouldn't end without repercussions. Caroline, are you okay? Cecil, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder, looked at me with concern. Are you okay, Caroline? I know you spoke for all of us, but now you're in the president's sights. I'm on your side, though. If anything happens, I'll be here to protect you. His strong reassurance lightened my heart slightly. I was grateful for such a supportive colleague. Though Helena's retaliation might start as soon as tomorrow, with these colleagues by my side, I felt ready to face it. However, Helena's actions were more straightforward than I expected, and she showed up in our department the very next day to announce. You, at your age with no significant position, not proficient at work, just getting older and more unsightly. How dare you talk back to me? Someone who has remained a mere employee all these years is not needed in this company. Frankly, you're an eyesore. You're fired as of today. Pack your things and leave. I was astounded by the abrupt and harsh dismissal. Fired? I echoed, in disbelief. Helena, with rough breath, pulled out a piece of paper. Yes, but it's not wrongful termination. Don't bother suing. Here's your termination letter and we'll even pay severance pay. Now, hurry up and leave. As Helena ranted. That's too much, President. Caroline is our moral support, indispensable to this company. Cecil stepped up, fists clenched. Helena scoffed. Cecil, you're mistaken if you think it's good to side with such an incompetent woman. It seems you've been influenced by her because you've worked together for too long. How pitiful. She's a detriment to this company. It's only right she's fired. I stood silently, absorbing Helena's verbal abuse. Arguing with someone like her was futile. If you say my presence is detrimental to the company, then I must accept my dismissal. I replied calmly, quickly packing my belongings and leaving, though I couldn't suppress my intense anger. I was determined not to let this end here. I had already identified Helena's weakness. The next day, I welcomed a refreshing morning, had breakfast, and cleaned my house. It should be about time, I thought, glancing at the clock as it struck 10 a.m. Right on cue, my phone rang. The company's number flashed on the screen. The caller was easy to guess. It must be Helena. Slowly, I answered. Caroline, oh thank goodness you picked up. Listen, about the firing yesterday, it was just a joke. I never imagined you'd take it seriously and actually not show up today. I'll overlook your tardiness, so please come to the office as usual. Helena spoke in the same cajoling tone she used with Cecil. You're so honest, Caroline, to take such a joke seriously. Helena's voice quivered slightly. It wasn't a joke. I have the signed termination letter. Does the company sign such things as a joke? If so, that's a terribly irresponsible company. A president who flirts with male employees and publicly humiliates an employee is disgraceful. I want nothing more to do with such a company. Helena was speechless at my words, so I pressed further. I know everything that happened this morning in the office and that you'd come crying to me for help. I had heard all about it from Cecil. Today was an especially important day for presenting our company's best product to a crucial client. Success would significantly boost our company, while failure would allow competitors to leapfrog us to industry leadership. It was such an important presentation. Even Helena must have recognized this importance, as she attended the morning meeting to motivate everyone. She asked who was in charge of the presentation, but no one came forward, and the room fell silent. Of course, I was the presenter. When Helena realized this, she panicked but then asked if anyone else could handle the responsibility. But what Helena found in front of her were resignation letters from all employees. Seeing my dismissal, everyone had had enough of the company. Hearing this from Cecil, I informed Helena. Please! If you're there, Caroline, the presentation can still go ahead. We don't have much time before the meeting with a client. I'll double your salary, and you'll be treated as a director. Please come back. Please. Helena pleaded hysterically, almost incomprehensible. Unfortunately, I have no intention of returning. Please handle it yourself. As president, you haven't worked properly and have been chasing employees around, decreasing performance. I don't think you have the capacity to manage it, I said before hanging up. I dismissed her further calls without hesitation. It would be interesting to see how she managed alone. That evening, Helena and Carl came to my house. As I cautiously opened the door, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive us. They pleaded tearfully. Apparently, the presentation had been a disaster. From the moment Helena arrived alone, the client must have been skeptical. Just minutes into the presentation, they stormed out, disgusted with Helena's incompetence. They said they'd reconsider if you were involved, Caroline. Please, for the company's sake, come back, Helena pleaded. My anger erupted. For the company? How can you say that? You've disrupted employees' work, fired me for speaking up, and caused everyone to turn against you due to your arrogance. This is the result of your actions. Please leave. As I attempted to close the door, Helena sprang up. It's all because you interfered with my lunches with Cecil, embarrassing me in front of everyone. That's why I fired you. You got in the way of my lunches with Cecil. That's all it was. What a childish notion. I knew it, but hearing it directly from her made me feel sick. I'm begging you to come back. Suddenly, Helena lunged at me, but was swiftly stopped by Cecil, who had come out of concern. Enough, please. I came because I was worried about Caroline, and I can't believe it's come to this, Cecil said, surprising both Helena and me. Helena, let me make it clear, dining or talking with you has been nothing but a pain because I have someone I like. I've told you many times, but you only looked at my appearance and never listened, Cecil confessed, leaving Helena paralyzed. Caroline and the other employees who resigned have already found new jobs. A competing company, looking to expand, was thrilled to hire us all. Everyone is talented, and they were delighted. Caroline and I are not coming back. You're the reason she was unfairly thrown out of the company. Please, don't show up in front of us again. If you don't leave, we'll call the police, Cecil said firmly. Helena tried to say something, but was pulled away by Carl, who was also pale. He was the fool who appointed Helena president and dismissed my desperate pleas. There's no room for sympathy without its supporting employees and missing a great opportunity. The company's reputation plummeted, leading to bankruptcy. I am sorry to the wonderful predecessor, but once the predecessor was gone, it was only a matter of time before it came to this. Helena and Carl disappeared, buried under immense debt. Living lives I don't even want to imagine. Meanwhile, Cecil and I began dating. The confession that I was the person he cared for came as a sweet surprise. After years of working together, our relationship evolved from trusted colleagues to partners. I'm grateful I didn't rush into marriage when I was younger, as I've now found the best partner later in life. Life is unpredictable. Maybe Cecil and I will get married. That's what I've been happily contemplating recently. Being broke and useless is grounds for divorce. So said Matthew as he left the divorce papers on the table and walked out. I was left staring at those papers, dumbfounded, on my hospital bed. I had my suspicions for a while. But, to think he was actually cheating. And he's leaving me because I'm useless and can't earn money while hospitalized and because Alyson's pregnant? Mom? Startled, I looked up to find my precious son Harlan and my dad standing there. My dad looked at what I was holding and frowned. What are you going to do? There's only one thing to do. With some persuasion, I managed an early discharge and headed to the bank where Matthew works. My dad, who drove me there, cheered me on. You can do it. Then he dropped me off in front of the bank and drove away. As I entered the bank, Matthew, noticing me, frowned. Coincidentally, there were no other customers in front of Matthew. I approached him directly. I'm closing all the company accounts. What? Let's show him whose daughter he's angered. While Matthew turned pale, I couldn't help but smirk. I am Sabrina, a 32-year-old corporate executive and mother of one. I have a 7-year-old son named Harlan, and my husband's name is Matthew. Matthew and I met at a party thrown by mutual friends during our college days. Back then, we had no interest in each other and merely exchanged contact information. Hey, weren't you at that party? Sabrina, right? Oh, Matthew? The following year, by coincidence, I used the bank where he worked, and we reconnected. That led to us keeping in touch regularly and eventually started dating. After I got pregnant with Harlan, we got married. Matthew was known for his serious and meticulous work, which made my friends envy that I had him as my husband. I, too, was happy to have married him. Mom, why does this become this? Hold on a sec. I don't know that much myself, so I'll look into it. Okay. Harlan, perhaps inheriting traits from Matthew, is studious and curious. He's always asking questions, which keeps me on my toes with my own studies. What's this? Why? Surprisingly, Harlan's admiration is not for Matthew but for my dad. My mother passed away from illness, and my dad, despite his busy work life, raised me as a single parent. I'm sorry, but it's hard to get along with your dad. Well, it can't be helped, but don't say that to him. He's quite sensitive about it. No way, I could. My dad is a kind man but looks intimidating and somewhat scary. Matthew is also not comfortable around him due to his appearance. My dad, aware of this, has always tried not to interfere too much. Thus, our life was peaceful at the beginning, a life that seemed full of promise. But that changed drastically after we got married. Hey! Where did you put my mobile phone? Don't say it like I'm responsible for it. Isn't it still on the charger? Right after waking up, Matthew would ask grumpily. Indeed, his mobile phone was where he left it charging the night before. No apologies or thanks from him, just a click of his tongue, which irritated me. Matthew changed after we got married. And whenever he had the chance, he would say this. I'm an elite banker. Thanks to me, you're living a comfortable life. Yet Matthew doesn't contribute financially at home. He spends his entire salary on himself, yet acts as if he's supporting the household. In reality, I'm the one supporting our family. I pay for all the utilities and groceries. Hey! What's with these new clothes? They're for Harlan. He's outgrown his old ones. Don't spend my money on luxuries. I'm paying with my own salary. I don't even have access to your account. Yet, if I take Harlan out for a meal or buy new clothes, he immediately complains. He seems to dislike any form of luxury, no matter how small. On the other hand, my dad is the type of person who's willing to spend money for our sake. The apartment you're in now is too small, right? That's why I bought the condo you and Matthew wanted to live in. And it's not far from my place, so I could be close with you guys. He said, laughing, and gave us the top floor as a gift. And to be there for us in times of need, he lives on a different floor in the same building. Mom, can I go to Grandpa's? Of course, but just because it's the same building doesn't mean you can stay out late. Make sure you come back before it gets dark. Okay. It might be natural for Harlan to be closer to his grandfather than his father, Matthew. Whenever he has the chance, Harlan goes to see my dad. Where's Harlan? At Dad's place. Is that so? Matthew never complains about my dad to him directly. And it seems he's careful not to say too much around Harlan, fearing he might tell my dad. It's just me he's bold with. Certainly, I keep quiet not to trouble my dad. Well, if it's just complaints, I can ignore them. That's how lightly I thought of it as. And so unlike my dad, Matthew doesn't participate in childcare at all. I've been called out by Alyson, so I'm heading out. What? Again? And it's Matthew's childhood friend Alyson who's stealing away his time from childcare. I dislike her, more than just being uncomfortable around her. Matthew and I are like siblings. So please don't misunderstand. Every time she meets me, she would say something like that. Yet, she always tries to assert her dominance. Matthew used to be. As if she knows Matthew better than I do, which is just annoying. Valeria, Matthew's mother-in-law, also dotes on Alyssyn, which complicates things further. Why did Matthew choose such a woman instead of Alyssyn? He should have married Alyssyn. When called to my in-laws, Valeria made sure to say such things loud enough for me to hear. John, my father-in-law, always scolds her for it, but she doesn't seem to care. Alyssyn claims to be a natural airhead. I'm just a natural airhead, that's why I rely on Matthew so much. I don't mean to make Sabrina uncomfortable. This might be okay if she were younger. But she's 28, not exactly young. It's time she acted her age. The reason she and Matthew didn't end up together is because of John. I don't want such a woman even as an in-law. If it really comes down to it, I'll divorce you. Alyssyn can hardly be called as a good person. She's notorious for playing around with men and doesn't work either. Whatever she wants, she gets Matthew to buy for her. John despises Alyssyn and strongly opposed their relationship. I could never understand why Valeria adores Alyssyn so much. I'm sorry for my wife's behavior. It's not something you should apologize for, John. Matthew too. To not defend his wife from such remarks, and instead, being friendly with such a woman. True to John's words, no matter what Valeria says about me, Matthew never defends me. Sometimes, he even laughs. Why do you say those things, Grandma? If Mom and Dad hadn't met, I wouldn't be born. Does that mean I'm an unwanted child to you, Grandma? No, that's not true at all. Harlan always stands up for me in place of Matthew. Harlan may not understand how children are made, but he knows they can't be born without both parents. Valeria adores her brilliant grandson, so she refrains from making such remarks in front of Harlan. In that aspect, Valeria and Matthew are very alike, making it seem they really are related. I have plans to drink with Alyssyn tonight, so I'll be home late. Oh, really? Gradually, I started to wonder if Matthew was necessary for us at all. And I began preparing for divorce. Harlan seemed to sense something too. If there's anything I can help with, just let me know, he said, showing concern for me. Then, I was summoned by Valeria. I really didn't want to go, but she kept calling persistently enough that it would affect my work if I didn't show up. John is away on business, so there's no one to carry heavy things. Can you buy some rice? Apparently, John was on a business trip. I wanted to tell her to just order it online, but saying that would clearly lead to an argument. After being tasked with carrying heavy items after work, I was exhausted. As I was heading back to the condo in a daze, my body was thrown by a car. It seems a car that ran a red light hit me. The driver who hit you fled the scene, and we're currently investigating. I was informed while lying in a hospital bed. For now, I left Harlan in my father's care and decided to stay in the hospital for a while. I broke my arm, so I couldn't work properly in this state. When I was being worried about such things, my dad scolded me. First, worry about your own health. Harlan, my father, and John, who came back in a hurry after hearing about the accident, visited me frequently, but Matthew and Valeria did not visit me at all. Well, that was within my expectations. Coming in. What? So, I was surprised when Matthew showed up in my hospital room. Sign this. Matthew presented me with divorce papers. Already signed by him, with Valeria's name as a witness. With that arm, you won't be able to work. Now that you can't make money, you're useless to me. What is that supposed to mean? And besides, Alyssyn is pregnant with my child. My thoughts froze at those words. Alyssyn is pregnant with Matthew's child. I'm going to marry Alyssyn. So just sign this quickly. Saying that, Matthew turned his back on me. As if I was of no further use to him. Being broke and useless is grounds for divorce, Matthew said as he left the divorce papers on the table and walked out. I was left staring at those papers, dumbfounded, on my hospital bed. I had my suspicions for a while. But to think he was actually cheating. And he's leaving me because I'm useless and can't earn money while hospitalized and because Alyson's pregnant? Mom? Startled, I looked up to find my precious son Harlan and my dad standing there. My dad looked at what I was holding and frowned. What are you going to do? There's only one thing to do, I answered while looking straight at my dad. My dad nodded in agreement. Well then, let's fight back. With some persuasion, I managed an early discharge and headed to the bank where Matthew works. My dad, who drove me there, cheered me on. You can do it. Then he dropped me off in front of the bank and drove away. As I entered the bank, Matthew, noticing me, frowned. Coincidentally, there were no other customers in front of Matthew. I approached him directly. I'm closing all the company accounts. What? Matthew's expression clearly said, what are you talking about? Without taking a number, I stood directly at the counter, noticing a few annoyed glances from others. Oh, excuse me. Maybe you didn't understand without the company name. What are you? I'm Sabrina Gibney. I recently took over my father and became the CEO. The company is Gibney Corporation. What the? Gibney Corporation is an IT company my father founded, now employing 1,900 staffs. And is quite well known in this area and within the industry due to its rapid growth in one generation. That's why Matthew was so surprised. That's a lie, right? You're just trying to get back at me. If you think so, why don't you check? Matthew started checking something immediately at my words. While he was busy, I looked around. Having mentioned the company name, the surrounding people were now paying attention to us. Oh my God, what? No way. It seemed he had confirmed it. Matthew looked up at me hesitantly. You're really from that Gibney Corporation? Let's show him whose daughter he has angered. Contrary to Matthew's pale face, I smirked unpleasantly. That's right, so please proceed with the cancellation quickly. Wait, if you cancel all at once like this. By the way, my father is quite angry about this matter as well. Quickly pack your things and leave the apartment. What? Why should I be the one to leave? It seems Matthew had forgotten that the apartment was purchased by my father, and the ownership was in my father's name. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought Alyson in while I was hospitalized and still be living there. Forgot? That apartment was bought by my father, the former president. You haven't contributed any money, let alone for living expenses. You've been spending everything on your childhood friend and mistress, Alyson. In fact, you've been living on my salary. Who do you think has been supporting your lifestyle? Well, about that. And now, because she's pregnant, you expect me to hand over the apartment to you and your mistress? How much more do you intend to insult me? I made sure to speak loudly enough for those around to hear. And of course, Matthew was flustered. After all, he's known for being serious. That he, of all people, wouldn't contribute financially at home and was cheating with a childhood friend. The looks we received from those around us turned cold. Is that true? What? The one who approached me was Ogden, the branch manager of this bank. He had been here for a while, listening to our conversation. I believe we need to have a detailed discussion. I am very sorry for the inconvenience caused by our bank employee. And with that, Ogden offered a deep apology. Following this, I was taken to the back to discuss further with Matthew, Ogden, and myself. There, I explained the situation to Ogden in detail. I am terribly sorry for the trouble our employee has caused. Ogden sighed deeply and apologized again. Next to him, Matthew sat looking displeased, and to that, Ogden forcibly grabbed his head to make him apologize. I understand your feelings, Sabrina. It's natural not to want to entrust your money to a bank that employs such people. If you're considering closing your account, we can arrange that. I am no longer his wife. If you accept one condition, I might reconsider closing the account. The two of them looked up hopefully at my words. It was a good deal for Ogden, but the worst possible condition for Matthew. If you fire Matthew here, I would like to continue my contract with this bank. What? Of course. We were actually planning to let him go. It seemed Ogden had already intended to do so. Matthew, initially confused, gradually turned red in the face. As he was about to say something. Excuse me, but Sabrina's father has arrived. Another bank employee approached us. I had asked Ogden to let him in, thwarting Matthew, who, frustrated, closed his mouth. Why do I have to be here? What? Mom? Sorry for making you wait. Dad entered, firmly holding Valeria's arm. Valeria, looking displeased, glared at me upon seeing me. This is your doing. What are you trying to accomplish? I'll never forgive you for treating your mother-in-law like this. Quiet. As Valeria began to shout, my dad fiercely scolded her. Giving an even more intimidating look, he managed to silence them. I know you've been harassing my daughter. Calling her for trivial tasks, making her carry heavy things. Despite this, instead of showing gratitude, you prefer to listen, and you made sure my daughter heard it. And Matthew, far from defending, laughed, and even Harlan had to step in to protect her. My dad's angry voice echoed through the bank. Matthew tried to intervene but remained silent under my dad's stern gaze. And I'm aware that Alyson is the one who hit Sabrina. That woman has already been arrested by the police. Could Alyson really have done such a thing? Why are you surprised? You're the mastermind. My dad scolded at her even more. Meanwhile, Matthew, seemingly unaware, froze in shock. What? You both are the worst. Sabrina, let's go. Yes. Prompted by my dad, we headed outside. Ogden followed, apologizing repeatedly. Thinking I might continue the contract with Ogden in charge, we heard Matthew and Valeria arguing loudly behind us. It seemed they were blaming each other. Their voices could be heard outside, and the customers and bank employees who were present whispered that what they had heard was true. Just as planned. Yes. They reacted just as we expected, which helped. Our plan had gone smoothly, and we left the bank laughing confidently. As a result, Matthew was indeed fired. Thanks to the police conducting a thorough investigation, Alyson received a prison sentence. As for Valeria, she was forced to divorce John after it was discovered she had instigated Alyson to run me over in an attempt to get rid of me. Valeria was also taken into custody by the police. Welcome back, Mom, Grandpa. I'm home. Thank you for looking after Harlan, John. No problem. Seems like you've settled everything at the bank. After cornering Matthew and his accomplices at the bank, I went to pick up Harlan, whom I had left with John. John had helped a lot this time too. He found evidence that Valeria was instigating Alyson and discovered notes about their plan to eliminate me, which he handed over to the police. When I thanked him for everything, John said with a smile, "You did great." Since then, my days have become busier than ever. Being busy as a next-in-line president and a board member already, becoming president has added even more responsibility on me due to Matthew. And as for my dad, he started a new company. I've always wanted to start a new company, he said, pushing the presidency onto me, eager to show Matthew up. Because of that, both my father and I became busy, so John has been looking after Harlan. Apparently, John's business trip was forced upon him because Valeria was having an affair with his boss. He took early retirement and moved into a vacant apartment in our building. I'm currently studying about remote work. Planning to eventually entrust him with work, I've sent someone knowledgeable his way. He seems very capable, so I'd like him to excel in my new company. It seems my dad and John got along very well after this incident, often visiting each other's apartments to drink and chat. On the other hand, Matthew, having been driven out, returned to his empty family home. Unable to find employment at any bank with rumors spread by my dad and I everywhere, he was left unemployable, forced to pay me compensation through debts. Now, spending his days tirelessly working part-time jobs, he came crying to us, but we collectively ignored him. Once rumored to be on the fast track to becoming a branch manager, he has fallen far. When I grow up, I want to be like Grandpa. Harlan has come to respect my dad even more after this incident, seeing him as a hero for rescuing us from the malicious acts of Matthew and Valeria. Would you take over for Grandpa someday? Yes. Hearing Harlan's willingness to follow in his footsteps, my dad was overjoyed. Determined not to be outdone by my father, I resolved to work even harder. Eventually, both my company and my father's company settled down. Oh, welcome home, Mom. Welcome back, looks like you worked hard. When I come home exhausted, I find John had already prepared dinner for us. I helped today too. Really? That's great, Harlan. I'm looking forward to dinner. Praising Harlan's effort with a smile, my dad also returned home late. Then, the four of us sat around the dining table, chatting and eating dinner together. In stark contrast to us, Matthew and his accomplices were scattered. Matthew piled up debts upon debts, eventually becoming indebted to a loan shark. And I heard rumors he was put on a ship. Matthew's family home was sold to pay off his debts, and Valeria, now without a place to go, was spotted living under a bridge by an acquaintance. By the way, I received an apology letter from Alyson's parents. They're good people, I hope you'll read it. If you say so, John. According to the letter from Alyson's parents, she gave birth in prison. They took the child in. Upon Alyson's release, they moved away to ensure she wouldn't rely on them. The letter contained deep apologies to me. Alyson's parents seem like very good people. I sincerely hope the child grows up to resemble their grandparents rather than their parents. Nonetheless, Alyson too has lost a place to return to. I hope she reflects on her sins in her solitude. Time passed by and it had been 10 years since the divorce. We've grown without being troubled by Matthew. Did I even have a dad? Apparently, he vaguely remembers Matthew's existence but considers irrelevant to his life. And I too have completely forgotten about his existence. I've decided to take over Grandpa's company after all. If that's what you've decided, I won't object. Harlan chose to inherit my dad's company, which was originally a company making toys. Starting as an ordinary employee, Harlan is valued for his constant flow of ideas. Maybe it's time to leave the company in Harlan's hands. My dad would say so in a laugh. Once he hands over the company to Harlan, he plans to live a quiet life in the countryside. I'm also finding a successor and teaching them my job earnestly. Once they've grown enough, I too might consider early retirement and start a new path. With that thought of future in mind, I will continue to work as the CEO. Seems like a son's wife is just an outsider, huh? No need to waste fancy coffee on a stranger like you. We'll enjoy it ourselves. With that, Emil grinned wickedly. Well, if that's how it's going to be, so be it. This is a game. A doubles game between Emil Elizabeth and Sale Felicia versus me and my husband. Strategy is key in a game. Just you watch. So, I cheerfully responded, gladly, with a big smile. My name is Diana. A 32-year-old working mother. Married to Elliot for 5 years. The day to build our own house has finally arrived. Building a house has been our goal since the beginning of our marriage. We visited various houses, took our time deciding, and diligently saved up. When our child was born 2 years into the marriage, our plans hit a snag. But Elliot and I persevered, and finally, we reached our savings goal. However, actually building the house was harder than imagined. A house is a big purchase. You can't just buy another if something goes wrong. We considered factors like transportation convenience, shopping accessibility, a child-friendly environment, and the reputation of local schools. And whether it was an easy commute for Elliot, a full-time employee. So many things to consider, even just finding the right location was tough. We eventually settled near the in-laws' house. It wasn't out of preference, but because the location was good. It wasn't about living together, but about bearing with minor annoyances. Once the land was decided, it was time to order the house. This was another challenge. Building our ideal home, with budget at the forefront, was full of issues. We progressed, step by step. But complicating matters further were Elizabeth and Felicia. For some reason, they kept interfering. When we mentioned building a house, both suddenly became interested. Elizabeth's eyes sparkled, and Felicia, in her late 20s and single, was excited.
Where will it be built? Which home builder are you using? What will the interior look like?
They asked all sorts of questions. I tried to brush them off. But then they somehow found out about our meetings with the home builder and the architect and started crashing them. How do they even find these things out? Sorry, it was me who talked. Elliot apologized. So you're the culprit? Even glaring at him, it was too late.
If the kitchen storage is too little,
Elizabeth would say,
having a wooden deck is essential,
Felicia would add. Somebody, please sew these two's mouths shut.
If you're doing barbecues in the garden, a big sink would be useful. A walk-in closet should be bigger, too. The windows should definitely be double-glazed for soundproofing. We'll need a bedroom for Mom and Dad, right? Shouldn't there be a room for Felicia to stay in too?
One after another. Wait, hold on. Why do we need a bedroom for the parents-in-law? And what's this about a room for Felicia? Ignoring Elliot and me, Elizabeth and Felicia, with almost a smirk, keep butting in, making the architect give a wry smile. After they left, I had to confirm with Elliot. I hoped not, but I had this bad feeling.
Hey, we're not planning to live together, right?
From their manner of speaking, I couldn't shake the feeling they were plotting just that. I hesitantly asked Elliot, who shook his head in a hurry.
No way! Dad wouldn't think of leaving the house he's used to. And Felicia's old enough, even if our parents' house was gone, there's no way she'd move in with us. That's what I thought.
Elliot denied it, but my anxiety didn't disappear. Somehow ignoring Elizabeth and Felicia's interference, we decided on the design and started construction. And a year later, our dream house was finally completed. It was tough, long, and oh so annoying. Lying on the living room sofa after moving in, I closed my eyes and recalled all the hardships. It was educational and fun looking at various properties.
Hey Mom, is it okay to put my cup here? Why not? Let's use this corner of the cupboard for mine and Felicia's things.
There were times, pointed out by the architect, when I felt disheartened by the difference between the ideal and the reality.
The best room on the second floor has to be sunny, right? I'll take the biggest one? Yeah, I'm getting old, a small room would be tiring. Let's go with that.
I really wanted to plant a viburnum in the garden. But who knew I'd have to research the type of soil, too.
Okay, then I'll call the moving company.
Thanks. You're reliable, Felicia. And then there's, wait, what's with these people swarming my house?
Elizabeth and Felicia. Why are you meddling with things inside the house? We're just moving things to make it more livable.
Felicia replied nonchalantly to my question. My clothes, still in boxes, were pushed to a corner, and somehow Felicia's clothes were making their way into the closet. Elizabeth too.
This new house is nice. It's exciting,
said, making herself coffee and starting to eat cookies. No, crumbs on the floor.
Hey, both of you, stop doing whatever you please. This is our house, you know.
I shouted, panicked, as the two behaved as if they were the ones who would be living here. But at that moment, the atmosphere changed.
What are you talking about?
Felicia said.
Huh?
As I tilted my head in confusion, Felicia pointed and continued.
This house was built by my brother Elliot.
Elizabeth nodded in agreement.
That's right. It's my son Elliot's house. What's wrong with parents or siblings living here?
There's plenty wrong with it. The worry I had since before the house was built seemed to be turning into reality. Could it be these two?
Then that settles it. Felicia and I will take the big room on the second floor. The room next to it will be Elliot's, no problem, right? There's a big problem. The big room is for me and my husband, and the next room is for our son.
What are you talking about?
Elliot and the grandson can just share.
What Elizabeth said made no sense.
No, it's too small for Elliot, me, and our son.
Elliot and the grandson can manage.
I'm here too, you know.
What are you talking about? That's when Elizabeth looked at me with a sinister smile.
Listen here. This house was built by Elliot, who's related by blood. That means it's the right of his blood relatives to live here. You're just an outsider, a stranger. You should just sleep on that sofa over there,
she said, pointing to the sofa. You're kidding, right? Elizabeth and Felicia seem serious about living in this house. My precious home is about to be occupied by this alien mother-daughter duo. Worried, I consulted Elliot that night. Luckily, they hadn't stayed over yet, but since they were talking about movers, they might seriously start living here soon.
Hey, are you really going to give them the biggest room?
No way. Of course not. When I told Elliot about today, he frowned.
But they're talking about turning our room into Elizabeth and Felicia's room?
That's a bit much. Elliot, looking troubled, tilted his head and talked with Elizabeth and Felicia the next day. And I thought they understood.
What, Elizabeth? What are you doing?
We're moving in. They didn't get it at all. During the day, when our son was at daycare and Elliot was at work, Elizabeth arrived with movers and started bringing in boxes.
Moving in!
Really, such an inflexible daughter-in-law. Why should we have to settle for a small room? That's practically ungrateful. After all, a son's wife is just a stranger.
Didn't Elliot tell you anything?
He did.
No to the big room.
What a narrowed-down version of the story. Living in this house at all is the problem. I was stunned as they moved everything in. The space intended for our son's room was now occupied by heaps of cardboard boxes, and then Felicia arrived. Oh no, it's a small room.
Felicia. What on earth? Hi, Diana, let's get along from now on. Since it's the joyous first day of moving in, let's have a luxurious dinner, okay? No.
Ignoring me, Elizabeth and Felicia disappeared into their room and closed the door. Oh, great. Due to Elizabeth and Felicia's surprise invasion, our new home was now occupied by the enemy. Suddenly, I was living with the occupying force. Cleaning, laundry, cooking, all my responsibility, which I wasn't happy about. And them using our stuff without permission was upsetting. But I couldn't really tell them not to use things since we were living together. As I was thinking this, Felicia took out a bottle of wine. That was something I bought for myself, but before I could say anything, she drank it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Elizabeth generously using my expensive lotion. That's expensive stuff. I ordered various things for the luxurious dinner, and of course, I had to pay. Elizabeth and Felicia ate all the delivered dinner. I didn't get a single bite. Elizabeth and Felicia always took showers before me, my husband, and our son. And they always left the hot water running. They never contributed to the utility bills. And they watched TV late into the night at high volume. The house was a mess, dirty everywhere. I'm always positive. Gradually, the absurdity became amusing. I decided to enjoy it. This was a hospitality game with Elizabeth and Felicia. Getting angry is bad for the skin, after all. So, let the hospitality game begin. One holiday. During a day off when Elliot and our son were home. Felicia woke up scratching her head and sat at the dining table. And she asked me, I'm so sleepy. Didn't get enough sleep. Is there coffee? Still sleepy after sleeping till noon. Then Elizabeth woke up. And similarly,
Diana, make some coffee,
she said, so I stood up. This is a game, a game. I win if I impress them. With that thought, I opened the cabinet with the coffee.
Let's see, there should be the instant coffee I bought yesterday.
It was a bit more expensive than usual. I showed it with a smug face, but they both looked disappointed. Don't they like it? Then Felicia stood up and started searching the cabinet. And
found it,
she said, taking out coffee beans.
Those are from a gift Elliot got from his boss.
It's not just any coffee, it's premium. We don't drink coffee from beans at home, so it was kind of wasted on us. Misunderstanding my expression, Felicia smirked.
What, hiding such good beans, Diana? You're so mean. Eh?
Elizabeth nodded at Felicia's words.
Really? You don't want us, who are not blood related, to drink delicious coffee. You're definitely an outsider. Such an outsider doesn't deserve this luxury coffee. What?
We'll drink this gifted premium coffee.
An outsider like you is fine with instant coffee, lol.
And Elizabeth laughed. This is not making any sense. But there's no interpreter. For me, it's actually a relief that they're using up the bean coffee. Seeing Elliot nodding in agreement.
Sure, I'd be glad to,
I said with a smile. She probably didn't expect that kind of response.
What?
Elizabeth looked surprised. Ignoring that, I took the coffee beans from Felicia.
All right, I'll make some delicious coffee now. Okay then.
Felicia seemed puzzled by my smile. There I was, rolling up my sleeves, ready to go. Let the game begin, making delicious coffee. But when I opened the bag and saw the beans, I was a bit stumped. I called Elliot, who was looking worried, for a consultation. He came over as I gestured.
What's up? Hey! How do you use coffee beans?
I've never made coffee from beans before. I asked Elliot, but I don't know either. He replied. Now we're in trouble. Our game of making the best coffee has hit a snag right from the start. Should we look it up online? No, that's the last resort. What to do then? Just have to wring out whatever little knowledge we have.
I think you have to grind them into a powder,
said Elliot. Okay, that makes sense.
But we don't have a mill or a blender. What about a mortar?
It got lost during the move. After some thought.
Maybe it's fine just to use the beans as they are?
I strongly agreed with Elliot's suggestion. So, let's give it a try. Beans as they are, into the coffee maker's filter. Okay, pour hot water over this.
Look, Diana, it's getting color. Really? So it's a success.
The color is super light, but surely that's what premium coffee looks like. Encouraged, we continued pouring hot water.
It's done! We've made premium coffee!
We proudly presented it to Elizabeth and Felicia. Elizabeth and Felicia sighed deeply at us.
Finally done? How long did it take you to? Seriously. Because of a stranger son's wife, time is wasted, it's so light.
Elizabeth smirked as she criticized me, then screamed when she saw the coffee.
What? It's so light. Is this tea?
Felicia frowned at the coffee too. We, the couple, shook our heads in disbelief.
Genuine premium coffee, extracted from high-quality beans. It's probably light in color because it's high class. We have milk and sugar if you need, but you should try it straight first.
With a musical note, I cheerfully pushed the cups towards them.
But... Please, go ahead. Elliot, is this really premium coffee? Yeah, the finest kind Diana and I made. Try it.
After being cheerfully encouraged by both of us, they reluctantly tasted the coffee. Immediately after.
So weak. Disgusting.
Elizabeth and Felicia both exclaimed.
What is this? This is not coffee. What is this? It's definitely weird. Diana, how did you make this coffee?
I just poured hot water over the beans.
What?
Was something wrong? I looked at Elliot, but he just shrugged. Weird, I just made it normally.
Too high class for your taste? Huh? I am a woman who suits high class stuff. It's this coffee that's odd. Ah, good. Then please drink it all. No, but I mean... Here you go.
If high-end stuff suits them, they'll surely get used to it while drinking. So, there's only one thing to do. I pushed the coffee cup to Felicia's mouth and made her drink forcefully. Meanwhile, Elliot, calling it filial piety, was encouraging Elizabeth to drink. Now, this is getting fun. The daily game is enjoyable.
Elizabeth, shall we clean your room? Hey, at least knock first. Sorry. Since you always enter our room without knocking, I thought it wasn't necessary. Felicia, all this stuff on the floor is trash, right? I'll throw it all away. That's a premium bag. Elizabeth, since you said the seasoning was too light yesterday, I made it stronger today. Too strong. Not just strong, it's spicy.
Felicia, it seems you like my lotion, but I have something better. It has a unique smell, but it's good for your skin.
Smelly. What is this? Don't put it on my face.
The game of pleasing them was getting more and more fun. I continued to serve them with increasing enthusiasm. They cried with joy, so I win. Elliot was also doing various things, but as I spend more time with them, I have the advantage. Then one day, Elizabeth and Felicia disappeared. Huh? Then I received a call from Fael. Oh right, Freddie from the in-laws' house. How has he been? Enjoying a carefree solo life? That's good. According to Freddie,
Elizabeth and Felicia came back crying. What happened? Elizabeth's lips are swollen, and Felicia's skin is shiny but smells terrible,
he said. They must have been so happy they went to report to Freddie. But they shouldn't think it's over yet. There's a barbecue in the garden tonight. I'm setting up a trampoline for Elizabeth and Felicia to enjoy, so I'll go pick them up now. I announced and went to fetch them from the in-laws' house. For some reason, they ran away, and a chase began. Eventually, I easily caught elderly Elizabeth and Felicia, who boasted about knowing all the hiding spots since childhood, was found by Elliot.
Stop it! Stop it, please.
They cried with joy, no need to be shy. A few days later, movers suddenly arrived and took Elizabeth and Felicia's stuff away. Why? I wanted to show more hospitality, I said to them hiding behind Freddie at the in-laws' house, and they shook their heads vigorously with pale faces. Elliot looked genuinely disappointed. Hey Elliot, seems like our hospitality wasn't enough for Elizabeth and them. Is that so? Maybe we need to study more. Hearing this conversation, Elizabeth and Felicia began to tremble. After that, Elizabeth and Felicia stopped coming to our house. Even when I greet them in the neighborhood,
Hello.
They run away immediately. Well, it's fine. Peaceful days returned. We remodeled their room into our son's room, and were even talking about having another child. Feeling a bit unfulfilled now the game is over, unnoticed Freddie stood beside me. The real ditzy ones never realize they're ditzy, do they? And muttered.
There is no seat of mine.
Olivia, oh, your seat? I canceled it.
Ava.
Today is the wedding ceremony of my dear brother, Jack. Me, his real sister, not having a seat at the groom's side is unthinkable. What do you mean by canceled?
Oh dear. I mean exactly what I said. Your seat isn't here anymore.
Laughing almost cartoonishly, adorned with numerous necklaces and bracelets, is Ava, the bride's mom. To me, she's just my sister-in-law's mom, not someone I usually interact with much.
But, as it turns out, Ava and I have a bit of history.
I'm Olivia, a 25-year-old singer. Since childhood, I've pursued my dream, enduring hardships and disappointments, but 3 years ago, I passed a crucial audition. That led to hit songs, and now I'm busy with solo concerts and TV appearances. I met my husband, Michael, at work, and we married a year ago. Both my professional and personal life are thriving. It's all thanks to the support of my family. Especially my brother, Jack, who's always been here for me. He had been claiming to me as, I'm your first fan since my debut. However, in the entertainment industry, I sometimes face criticism for being frivolous or chasing dreams endlessly. When Jack's marriage was decided, my biggest concern was exactly this.
I worried if Jack would be badmouthed by his wife's family because of my career, but Mary and Ava, his wife and mother-in-law, smiled and supported my work. I was so happy with that, yet I never imagined today's wedding turning out like this.
Come on, how long will you stand there? You're obstructing the other guests. Please leave quickly.
What are you talking about? Today is my brother's important wedding. I'm definitely attending. How many times do I have to tell you? You don't have a seat. Just go home immediately.
Then, a staff member from the venue, seemingly unable to watch any longer, came to help. If there's been a mistake, we can arrange a seat for you. What would you like to? It's fine. Today is my daughter's wedding. The presence of someone like her would only lower the grade of the ceremony. No need for unnecessary interference. What do you mean by that?
Don't you get it? I don't want someone with a frivolous job like yours in my family. I cannot let that comment go. Please retract it.
Where did I go wrong?
I'm proud of my job.
Just because you're a bit famous, you act so high and mighty. You're just a one-hit wonder, aren't you? You'll fade away soon enough. I was so stunned by her words that I fell silent. My husband Michael, perhaps out of anger, had gone pale and was glaring at Ava.
Was Ava really so pleased with our situation?
She dramatically spread her arms wide with a triumphant look. Her heavy bracelets clanged loudly. If you really want to attend badly, there's one condition. If you can meet it, you're welcome at the wedding. All right, let's hear it for now. Though I was thinking, what kind of condition? I prepared to listen. Ava's face twisted into an even more satisfied, mocking smile.
Quit your singing career. Then, I'll allow you to attend.
I couldn't help but raise my voice at Ava's outrageous suggestion. Ava snorted arrogantly. Her expression seemed to say, "There's no way you could do that."
She knew I couldn't accept such a condition and seemed to enjoy seeing me struggle.
You can't do it, can you? You always put yourself first. Your job is more important to you than your own brother, isn't it?
Such a selfish and detestable woman. There's no place for you here. Just leave.
Shocked by her cruel words, my husband Michael started to retort, but I pulled his arm to stop him.
Michael looked at me unhappily, but I shook my head slightly and then faced Ava squarely. Understood. Then, we'll leave here.
What?
Michael, let's go.
Wait a minute. This is your own brother's wedding, are you sure? Ava seemed panicked as I began to leave the venue, was saying nonsensical things.
My reaction must have been quite different from what Ava had expected.
Perhaps she thought I would be crying, begging, "Please let me attend the ceremony."
Right after leaving the venue, I heard Ava's screeching voice. How insolent!
But I didn't stop. As I walked down the corridor, I heard someone calling my name from behind. Turning around, I saw Jack running towards me, looking frantic.
Sis, I heard everything. This is unbelievable, truly unacceptable.
Jack, calm down a bit.
How can I stay calm in this situation?
Michael and I had to soothe an agitated Jack together. Once he calmed down a bit, I took a deep breath and faced him.
I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't mean to cause trouble on your special day.
This isn't something you should apologize for, sis. But why would Ava say something like that?
Well, anyway, now things happened like this. I'm calling off the wedding.
Then it's my turn to be surprised.
What? Wait a minute. That's too much.
I can't have a wedding feeling like this.
But what about Mary?
I'm fine with it. Surprised by the unexpected voice, I turned to see Mary standing there. Dressed in a beautiful white wedding gown, Mary looked like a fairy, but her face was clouded with sadness. This pained my heart even more. I'm sorry that my mom's behavior. I don't understand why she did that.
It's not Mary's fault. But I can't go on with the wedding knowing I've caused you such distress.
We'll explain it to the guests. So, sis, don't worry about it.
All right. But don't push yourselves too hard. Sis, I'm sorry. I'll come and apologize properly later. I'm very sorry.
Mary. Tears streamed down Mary's face as she apologized repeatedly, and I felt like crying too.
What should have been the happiest day of her life was ruined. This made me even angrier at Ava.
But there was nothing more we could do there. Michael and I left the venue with feeling terrible. According to Jack, who called me that night. When Ava heard the wedding was cancelled, she was furious. Seemingly oblivious that she was the cause, although she ranted about the preparations and the money spent. However, an angry, tearful Mary and Ava's husband, now aware of the situation, scolded her, and she reluctantly backed down. Jack and Mary told the guests that a family member had fallen ill as an apology.
Not revealing the truth was probably their way of showing some mercy to Ava.
Thinking of their feelings, I felt deeply saddened. How did things end up like this?
While Jack and Mary's support was comforting, but I couldn't help feeling down, blaming myself for being a singer.
A week later, Michael and I visited Jack's house. We had received a call from Jack and Mary, who wanted Ava to join them in making a formal apology.
They should be the ones coming to our house. Ava absolutely refuses to do that. Are they really sorry then? I think so too, but considering Jack and Mary's feelings.
I didn't want to see Ava, but after hearing Jack and Mary's earnest apologies on the phone, I couldn't refuse. Besides, I had something important to resolve.
Sis, sorry for bothering you today.
Mom, come on, greet them properly. They apologized repeatedly as we arrived. Ava, looking displeased, merely muttered, "Oh, hello." Seeing this, an almost tearful Mary scolded her. I was beyond anger, so already wanting to leave, but I didn't. Because Jack urged, "Please come in." Michael and I sat down, opposite side was Jack and Mary, with Ava also seated. "It's about," Mary began. "I wanted to be a singer. It's embarrassing now."
There's nothing embarrassing about it. Mary has more talent than anyone.
Mom, please be quiet. As you can see, she was more enthusiastic about me becoming a singer than I was.
Singing is the perfect career for Mary.
Please, just be quiet. Ava, about to start shouting, was silenced by Mary's firm words. Of course, singing was my dream too. But as I realized there were better singers out there, my desire faded. Yet, Mom insisted I become a singer. So, 3 years ago, in my graduation year, I promised the audition I took that would be my last. If I passed, I'd pursue singing, but if I failed, I'd give up. And I failed.
It wasn't just a failure. You made it to the final round. You were almost successful.
As Ava exclaimed, I was intrigued by the audition 3 years ago. It was the same audition that kick-started my career as a singer. I had a suspicion. Mary, was that the audition? Yes. The same one Olivia passed. I participated too. I hadn't realized it at all. You only care about yourself, don't you? Such an unpleasant woman. Mary, with tears in her eyes, reproached Ava, who spat out her words with vehemence. As I watched the two of them, I finally felt a sense of understanding. Hearing Mary's story, Ava's past behavior finally made sense to me. And seeing Ava's attitude now, I decided to go through with the decision I had secretly made. I finally understand, Ava. Oh, what's with that look? How insolent. Honestly, I wasn't sure whether to say this or not. After all, you're Jack's mother-in-law. I didn't want to make a fuss. What do you mean? Ava, you've been saying it all along, haven't you? To introduce Mary for a singing job or to refer her to my agency. Eh? Mom, you said that?
That was just small talk. Even for small talk, it felt like big pressure. You became more aggressive when I didn't take you seriously, and recently, you even threatened to sell my private photos to a tabloid if I didn't introduce her.
Hey, that's practically threatening. Jack, enraged, leaned forward, but I gestured for him to stay calm. Next to him, Mary opened and closed her mouth in disbelief. She might have been too shocked to find words, not expecting her own mom to do such things. I felt a bit guilty, but I couldn't stop now. The incident at the wedding ceremony, was it your way of getting back at me because things didn't go your way?
Mom, did you really do such a terrible thing? That is. You coward. Bringing this up in front of Mary.
I knew Ava didn't want Mary to know about her actions. Mary would be hurt if she found out. That's why I had been hesitant to say anything. But I had explained the situation to Michael, then he nodded slightly at me from beside of me. Ava was ignoring Mary's attempts to stop her, approached me, veins throbbing on her temples.
Let me make it clear. Mary has far more potential as a singer than you. If it weren't for you, she would have passed the audition. She could have been a singer, even a star. I let her marry into a less impressive family, thinking it might lead to a singing opportunity for her. How dare you take advantage of my kindness?
Ava's intensity silenced not just me, but Jack and even Mary. As we stood there stunned, Ava continued her irrational tirade. You probably used some dirty tricks to pass that audition, didn't you? Bribe the judges, maybe even seduce them. You seem like the type of doing that really well. Even now, who knows what you're doing to get work?
Mom, please stop.
Mary's tearful plea seemed unheard by Ava. I was so overwhelmed, I didn't know whether to be angry or sad. Then, Michael spoke up. Olivia passed the audition on her merit. Aren't you a sweet husband? But your wife's popularity is just a fluke. Likewise,
Mary failing the audition was a matter of merit.
Michael's firm tone even caught Ava off guard.
I remember that audition 3 years ago well. All the finalists were closely matched in talent. But Olivia had the strongest determination to become a singer.
What right do you have to say that? You're not even involved.
I am involved.
Huh?
I was a judge at that audition. I'm Michael, a music producer.
Michael, the famous music producer Michael? Michael is known as a famous music producer whose works are all hits. Even those not well-versed in music have likely heard his name. He seldom appears in the media, so his face isn't widely recognized. That's why it's understandable that Ava hadn't recognized him. Ava blinked in surprise for a while, but then approached Michael with a sly smile.
I had no idea that you were the famous Michael. You should have told me sooner.
What would you have done if I had?
Of course, I would have introduced Mary to you. She's a diamond in the rough. With your help, Michael, she could become a star singer.
Enough, Mom.
Do you even know what you're saying?
Be quiet. I will make Mary a singer, no matter what. Stop it, please. Mary yelled with a voice that sounded to shake the room, tears streaming down her face as she glared at Ava. Her face was red with anger, fists clenched tightly, clearly furious from the bottom of her heart.
In conclusion, Mom just wanted to make me a singer for her own vanity and desires.
That's the worst.
How can you say such things to your mother? A parent's dream is their child's dream. Children have a duty to fulfill their parents' dreams. Don't you understand that? I gave birth to a child with a talent for singing, just for this.
Don't talk nonsense.
The one talking nonsense is you. You could have been rich and famous. What a disappointment.
That's it, I've had enough. I'm cutting ties with you, Mom.
What? Are you out of your mind? From this moment, you are a stranger to me. Please leave. Mary, don't joke around like that. Get out.
Mary, with a strength that belied her slender arms, pulled Ava and pushed her outside the door. Ava, having been thrown out, angrily pounded on the door. When Mary threatened to call the police if she didn't quiet down, Ava's anger turned to tears and pleading.
Mary, why are you doing this to me? I've always done everything for you. Still saying that. Apologize to Olivia, you shameless woman.
Watching Mary shout pained to me, but I was glad she stood by me to the end.
I secretly decided that if Jack and Mary would have another wedding, I will definitely support them.
3 months after the incident with Ava. Ava, disowned by Mary, was also divorced and kicked out of her home by her husband. It was discovered that she had secretly incurred debts in her efforts to make Mary a singer.
She faced claims for damages to her family and me, as well as the wedding cancellation fees, which further increased her debts.
Now, she's living modestly, working part-time to repay her debts. Having been a housewife for so long, it's been tough for Ava to work outside. She frequently contacts Mary, saying, "We're family, after all."
But Mary firmly rejects her each time.
This experience taught me that being a well-known name can unexpectedly attract resentment. Although having achieved my dream, I consider myself fortunate and will continue to work hard as a singer.
The compensation money from Ava was given to Jack and Mary, which they used for their rescheduled wedding. Seeing them finally happy was a great joy for me.
I will make you happy for the rest of your life. Will you marry me? Of course I will. It was 5 years ago when my husband Trent proposed to me. We were college classmates, joined in the same student club and felt a great compatibility with each other. Naturally, we started dating and then got married. My name is Yolanda. 5 years have passed since our marriage, and I am now 33 years old. I'm still living the married life with Trent, but you've been slacking off lately, haven't you?
What? What are you talking about all of a sudden? What is this I found?
Trent, who had just changed clothes in the closet after coming back home, confronted me with a receipt he found in the trash can of the room. It was a receipt from the lunch I had outside today.
I don't understand what you mean. Whose money do you think you're spending on these lunches? I'm having trouble here, you going out for these expensive lunches every time, especially when you're not working. Don't live luxuriously on my dime.
The happy atmosphere of our newlywed days had faded over the 5 years. Trent started acting like a bossy husband about a year ago. Suddenly, he completely stopped helping around the house.
It's weird for me to be doing housework. Housework is a woman's job. Especially since you're a housewife, I shouldn't be helping you.
With a mean smirk, Trent started making snide remarks. Although I was puzzled at first, I got used to his attitude within half a year. However, he wouldn't give me any answers when I asked why he changed. Yet without any clear reason, Trent just kept on bossing around every day.
But look at the cost of that lunch, it's pretty cheap, right? It's not even $15 per person. I don't think it's expensive enough to be angry about, and it's not like I go every day. Is it bad even once a month?
What?
Just because it's infrequent, you think that makes it okay? Are you kidding me? Whose money do you think this is?
But...
It's not your money. It's my money. So if I say it's a waste, then it's a waste. If you're upset about it, do something about it yourself.
Don't be unreasonable. Besides, you were the one who said I shouldn't work. Isn't that a bit much to say? I kept working even after we got married. But in the second year of our marriage, Trent got transferred to a different department and started working long hours. That's when he asked me to quit my job. He said he wanted me to be at home when he was tired and coming home from work. And so, to fulfill that wish, I quit the job I loved.
Women working outside the home never leads to anything good. Quit it, quit it. And if you did work, could you manage household chores too? Impossible, right? It's clear you wouldn't be able to handle it all perfectly.
But I don't think it's right to complain like that. However, I had already reached my limit with Trent's attitude. I wondered why he needed to say that far. Without any clear reason or cause. And no answers even when I asked him directly. I was thinking that if this continued for life, maintaining our marriage would be difficult.
With that way of speaking and your ridiculous attitude, it's really unbelievable. If that's the case, I won't do the housework and will go out instead. I'll take care of my own chores, but you'll have to do your own, Trent.
What?
Why the hell? Isn't it obvious? There's no way I'll do this being blamed like that. I don't know where you got these ideas, but the days of housework is women's work have already gone. If you're going to keep complaining, then I have my own plans.
I began to calmly clear up the dishes in the sink. Usually, when I speak up like this, Trent loses his words and starts mumbling, "No, I didn't mean, But even paying attention to that is tiresome. Ending a marriage isn't something that can be done easily. That's why a part of me still wants to believe that one day things will change. Tossed around by this difficult issue, I kept wondering whether I should cut ties with Trent. Then one day, out of the blue, Trent sent me a message. "Starting next month, I'll take charge of your wallet." I had no idea what he was talking about, but that night, when Trent came home, he started to explain.
Clearly, I can't entrust you with our finances. Starting next month, I'll be managing the money. What? Why all of a sudden? Did something happen? Let's be honest, you've been really extravagant, haven't you? To be frank, I have no idea about the amount you're spending. So, I'll take control of the finances. That way, we won't waste unnecessary money, right?
I was bewildered, wondering what he was suddenly talking about. I thought maybe the issue with the lunch before was really bothering him.
Look, about that lunch the other day? I've said it many times, but I don't go that often, you know? I can't trust you. What? So, what would make you satisfied? I'll be satisfied if I manage it for the time being. Huh? So, you just want to manage it yourself and you're making up excuses?
No.
That's not it. I just want to keep track of it. Got any complaints? It's strange. Why should you manage the money I earn by working? I should be the one managing it.
Whenever Trent lies or makes a desperate excuse, he always shows a look of annoyance. And right now, he's making those excuses right in front of me. There must be some other reason.
Hey, are you hiding something?
What?
I'm not hiding anything. Well, even if you say it's not good, starting next month I'll be the one managing. Got it? This is a done deal. It's fine to say that, but can you manage it? Trent, you're not exactly frugal. Are you mocking me? I can manage my own salary. Well, your spending money will be just $100 though.
Trent, looking very pleased with himself, decides on the amount of money I can freely use and laughs heartily. In the first place, how does he expect me to manage with just $100? He clearly has no understanding of our household finances. And what about the living expenses? At this point, I felt it was best to keep my cool.
Oh, so you got $300 and you're calling me stingy? Don't compare me to you. I'm the one who earned that money, so it's only natural. Besides, you can hardly do anything with just $300. It was inconvenient for me. Don't say you decided to take control just for that reason. That's none of your business. You've been leeching off me all this time. Now, it's time to pay for being such a parasitic woman.
Parasitic, huh?
I never thought I'd be called bad like this. I don't care. Listen, I'm managing the finances from next month. It's decided. Don't complain every time, got it?
Trent fled to the bathroom and took a shower. I was far from convinced. Because I felt that Trent was hiding something more. The next day, I tried to uncover the truth. But of course, there was no obvious evidence lying around the house.
It's strange. I felt like he was hinting he needed money, but
Suddenly, I remembered our savings account. Actually, we had set up this account after getting married. It was intended for emergency expenses. I noticed that the drawer containing the banking card had been slightly opened.
I haven't opened it recently, surely not.
Tentatively, I checked the bank balance online. And there it was, the balance was only $7.
What? What is this?
I was speechless to see that, which should have been well over several $1,000,000, was almost nothing. That night, I confronted Trent, but the answer I got was unexpected.
What's wrong with me using it? I earned the money. If you don't like it, we can get a divorce, you know?
What do you mean?
This was the account we were saving for emergencies. I can't believe you used it without asking. What did you spend it on?
Trent was unapologetic. Moreover, he boldly claimed it was his money. However, the withdrawn amount was about $6 million. Obviously something was wrong. I was thinking of divorce if he evaded the reasons, but it ended up with him implying divorce first. However, Trent, with a composed attitude, blurted out something outrageous.
Well, it was for my girlfriend. What? I spent it on my girlfriend. Got a problem?
Trent casually admitted to having an affair. With a creepy smile on his face. I was beyond angry and managed to deal with the situation calmly.
She's younger and cuter than you. So I don't mind getting a divorce at all. Oh, really? Well, since you're so openly talking about your affair in front of me, you must be prepared, right?
Then Trent burst out laughing.
Ah ha ha ha. Hilarious. You know, in this world, evidence is everything. Proof? Preparedness? Do you even have that? Sure, I just admitted to having a girlfriend, but do you have any proof of that?
Trent revealed his infidelity, confident that I had no proof. Essentially, without evidence, I couldn't prove his adultery. This meant that no matter what was said, he could deny everything in a crunch since there was no proof.
In the world, you often hear about housewives realizing their husband's infidelity, then getting compensation in divorce court. But reality isn't so sweet.
You won't be able to do anything to me and will be divorced.
What's that supposed to mean?
See? You're starting to understand your position, right? You don't want to be divorced, do you? So just shut up and follow what I say. The reason doesn't matter. Trent smirked triumphantly at me. I despised Trent from the bottom of my heart, but I knew I had to handle this calmly. Okay, so I'll be managing the finances from next month. Oh, and I have plans to go on a trip with my friends next weekend. I won't tell you where to avoid being caught. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what you can do with just $100 a month. Trent then went into the bedroom. After a while, I could hear him talking to someone in the room. It must have been his mistress. On that day, I realized I was betrayed by my husband and my life was being controlled. Or so it seemed. A month later, Trent returned from his trip with his friends, rolling his suitcase.
I'm back. Had a blast. Don't expect any souvenirs from me, obviously. Hey, what's this?
Trent probably wanted to flaunt his dominance as he entered the house, with his snide remarks echoing down the hallway. But without paying attention to his voice, I was sitting on the living room sofa, legs crossed. And there, spread out on the floor around me, were all the pieces of evidence of Trent's infidelity, waiting for his return. Photos, investigation reports, WhatsApp conversations, and more. I had laid out all the evidence I had meticulously collected.
Hey, what's this?
I thought I'd show you my face one last time before leaving. How about it? This is all the evidence I've been gathering for so long. I smiled at Trent, who turned pale. He seemed frightened by my gaze. All his earlier bravado had vanished.
Proof. What? How did you?
You thought you could boldly cheat because there was no proof, but you were so wrong. I've been collecting this evidence for a year, waiting for this day.
A year ago.
I had accidentally seen a ridiculous message of "I love you" on your mobile phone a year ago, which tipped me off about the affair. Since then, I had been discreetly gathering evidence, entrusting it to professionals.
Wait. How did you collect all this evidence? You'd need money to hire a professional. You didn't use my money, did you?
I think it's questionable that you keep referring to it as your money, but right after I discovered your affair, I started a data entry job to have my own disposable income.
What?
I did all this to save up for investigation costs and gather evidence. But the side job ended up being more successful than I thought. Within half a year, I was making as much as an average salaried worker. That's why I could afford to go out for lunch without worry and even hire a professional.
Are you serious?
I plan to keep doing it. So let's get a divorce. I don't need you anymore. I stood up from the sofa and was about to leave the room, when Trent grabbed my arm.
Wait. I don't want a divorce.
What? I quickly shook off his grip and glared at him. Who said it was okay to divorce? Since I have your permission, I'll proceed with the discussion, all right?
Wait. I wasn't serious. I just wanted to scare you a bit.
So? I sighed deeply. Just thinking that I married this man made me feel disgusted.
Sorry. I'm really sorry. Please forgive me.
No. I didn't want to hear any more excuses, or see his face or hear his voice. So I just added a single word and left the house. Of course, I had copies of all the evidence scattered on the floor. I had the originals and all the photos. So I deliberately left them scattered as a final parting gift.
Don't go, please. I'm begging you.
I ignored his familiar voice behind me, closed the front door, and went back to my parents' house. 3 days later, Trent, his mistress Yvonne, me and my lawyer arranged to meet. The topics were only compensation in the divorce case and repayment of the squandered savings. I demanded $3 million from Trent and $1.5 million from Yvonne.
Don't joke with me. I will absolutely not pay $1.5 million.
Yvonne came at me, yelling loudly. Trent tried desperately to stop her, but I was not idle enough to deal with these foolish people. Or rather, Trent had no taste in women. A junior from the same company, just because she's fairly good-looking, he got involved with such a woman. All right, if that's the case, we won't settle out of court. Let's go to trial then.
What? A trial? Why?
I became weary of even explaining inside, ready to leave the place. Why do I have to confront such idiocy? And then, I just let out what I was thinking, both in my expression and attitude. Ugh. Ridiculous. You knew he was married when you got involved with him, right? Don't you realize that's wrong? How old are you? You're wrecking someone's family. You should be grateful we're even considering a financial settlement. It'd be wise for you to recognize that you're getting off easy. Use whatever brains you have left.
What?
I can't stand to hear your excuses. Okay, so no settlement outside of court. I really don't want this to drag out, but it seems I have no choice. We'll settle this in court then. And of course, we'll have to inform your company about the lawsuit caused by your affair, right? Make sure you tell them. Goodbye, you won't get another chance.
Wait a moment. Yolanda. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't go to court.
I let out everything I wanted to say all at once. And then, I resolved to take it to court. Not agreeing to an out-of-court settlement and going to trial is common sense in society. The other party is senseless, but maybe they'll understand how terrible their actions were if they suffer the consequences. I thought they deserved to go through that pain. Afterward, Trent tried to contact me numerous times, but I ignored all of it. I shut out all communication and consulted with my lawyer about the divorce trial. The trial began, and both sides had lawyers, but then they sought a settlement. However, I refused it. I already gave you a chance, I said. And then, I won the case. Even though the compensation was reduced, I was really glad to settle everything decisively in court. Following the trial, both of them took voluntary retirement from the company. They felt uncomfortable being whispered the foolish who refused settlement and lost the case. Now, they have returned to their parents' homes, but things didn't work out, and it seems they were driven out of their hometowns. Nobody knows where they are or what they're doing now. And since they haven't tried to contact me, I've been living peacefully. To be safe, I'm considering the idea of moving abroad, for I'm a bit scared of time. I'm thinking it would be nice to live leisurely in a country where the cost of living is fairly reasonable.
Please, help me!
The voice of Mia on the phone was so frantic that I had never heard. She was supposed to be on a plane to Hawaii with Ethan by now. Was there some kind of trouble? I braced myself.
Our house! Our house!
What? Our house? Mia wasn't on the plane. Learning the truth, I resolved to send Ethan, who had been missing, to hell. I'm Lily, a 32-year-old corporate employee at a major trading company. My husband Ethan is a year younger than me, and we got married 3 years ago. He works for a big corporation too, and is quite handsome by any standard. I didn't choose him for his looks or salary, but he's been nothing short of perfect as a spouse. I've been happy we married early. Our marriage was smooth sailing, but then, out of nowhere, Ethan quit his job recently. According to him, he couldn't give up his dream of becoming a writer and needed to submit lots of manuscripts for competitions to debut. I told him, "You can write after work on weekdays or on weekends." But my words fell on deaf ears. Instead of focusing on his health after quitting, he's been mostly sleeping at home, almost like he's unemployed. Hey, if you're going to be at home, at least do some housework. If I do the housework, I'll have no time to write my manuscript. You're just sleeping all day anyway. I was fed up with this repetitive argument. Not working, not doing house chores, just sleeping. My patience with Ethan was wearing thin, and I started considering divorce. But thinking about my good income, Ethan's remaining savings, and most of all, Mia, Ethan's mother, who was overjoyed about our marriage, made it hard to take that step. Mia raised Ethan alone and dotes on him as he has no siblings. She was thrilled about our marriage, treating me like her own daughter. However, since Ethan quit his job, Mia started to act awkwardly around me. She often didn't respond to my messages. It was clear she was avoiding me, and I couldn't figure out why. When I asked Ethan, he just said it would be best to leave her alone, not taking it seriously. Gradually, I too started to dread contacting her, deciding to just observe as he suggested.
At least do the house chores if you're not working. I'm doing all the work and house chores while you just sleep all day.
That day, my anger finally erupted. Ethan was talking about a deadline for some competition, but he wasn't acting like it. He complained about me being slow to prepare lunch while I was working remotely. I couldn't stay silent after that. It turned into a fierce argument.
You're always working too, never make a decent meal. What, should I just not eat? Your lazy behavior without working is only possible because I'm out there earning our living expenses, right? Your savings hardly make a dent in our costs.
Being called out for not working and being supported by me, Ethan's face turned red with embarrassment and he started shaking. I thought if he got violent, I'd leave the house right away, but thankfully, that worst-case scenario was avoided. Without saying a word, Ethan stormed out of the house. Watching him leave in his casual clothes, with just his mobile phone and wallet, making deliberately loud footsteps, I felt like I was looking at a petulant child. The only place he could go in that getup would be his parents' house. I thought of warning Mia in advance about Ethan possibly causing trouble, but, as usual, she didn't answer her phone. He sneaked back home later that night, but from that day on, our conversations dwindled, and he started avoiding me, going out more frequently. For an unemployed Ethan, his destinations were limited, usually his parents' house, and sometimes I'd find receipts from internet cafes. I tried to initiate conversations several times, but each time, he would escape to his room or just leave the house. I gave up on repairing our relationship and started preparing for a divorce. I thought it best to inform Mia about the divorce. I sent texts and made calls, but got no response. Even when I asked Ethan that something might have happened to her, he just said she was fine. Considering how often he visited his parents' house, I believed him, but I started doubting his whereabouts. I could just ask Mia how often he visits her, but I couldn't get in touch with her. I thought about investigating his whereabouts myself, but with work and household chores, I didn't have the time or energy. Returning home after a late-night overtime shift, I found him fiddling with something in front of the closet.
What are you doing up so late?
Welcome back. Actually, I'm planning to take Mom to Hawaii tomorrow, just packing for the trip.
Tomorrow? That's quite sudden.
Unconcerned by my surprise, he happily packed the luggage. I knew Mia always wanted to go on a trip. After Ethan's father passed away when Ethan was young, Mia devoted herself to working and raising him alone. She rarely even went to the department store, let alone on trips. I remember her saying that with a wistful smile.
This month, Mom turns 60, so I thought I'd fulfill her long-standing dream. Mia's turning 60 already. Yeah, that's why I've been working part-time lately, saving up money for this. But there's a bit of a problem.
He looked up at me.
I've got enough for Mom's part of the trip, but I'm short for my half. I've been saving, but it's not enough. So, I was wondering, Lily, could you help out a bit? Is that okay?
He looked at me with a pleading expression, radiating charm as if refusing him would be unthinkable.
So, you're saying I should pay for your part?
Startled by my unexpectedly cold tone, he hastily shook his head.
No. Just lend me the money. I'll pay it back after the trip. And you're not going to fail to pay me back because you can't find a job, right?
I glared at him, and he looked suspiciously guilty. I was astounded by his audacity.
I won't do that. Trust me, I can even write a commitment form if you want.
All right, let's do that. I pulled a piece of paper and a pen towards me.
After the trip, you'll get a full-time job and start paying it back. No part-time jobs, understood?
He grudgingly agreed, though he seemed reluctant.
And if you can't pay back, we'll divorce. We'll settle it in court with a third party.
Divorce? He looked visibly unsettled. Maybe the reality of divorce hit him hard. Still, when I insisted I wouldn't lend him the money unless he agreed to these terms, he reluctantly accepted. I wrote down the conditions and the amount, and had Ethan sign it. Make sure you pay it back. I know. I made a copy of the agreement and handed it to Ethan. It might be a good idea to show it to Mia if I get a chance. Feeling exhausted, I left him by the closet and went to bed. I intended to see him off, but he must have left early. When I woke up to go to work, he and his luggage were already gone. Thanks to yesterday's overtime, my workload today was light. I could finish my work in the morning and take a half day off. I planned to enjoy life without Ethan to the fullest. After finishing my work in the morning, I was having lunch, wondering if he and Mia were on the plane by now, when my phone started ringing loudly. Thinking it might be a work call, I answered without checking the caller.
Ah, good, you picked up.
It was Mia's voice, desperate and strained, not at all like someone in the middle of a luxurious Hawaiian vacation.
Mia, what's wrong? The trip? Have you already arrived in Hawaii? Hawaii? Trip? I don't know what you're talking about. Please, come over. The house, our house, it's about to burn down.
Mia's plea was almost a scream. In the background, I could hear the sound of fire trucks and orders being shouted. Though I puzzled, I quickly agreed to come and hurriedly finished my lunch and headed to her house. When I arrived, the smell of smoke filled the street, and flames leaped high into the sky.
Mia!
I rushed towards Mia, who seemed on the verge of collapsing in front of her burning house. She looked up at me with a pale, distant face and murmured faintly, "This house is done for." Led by Mia's gaze, I looked up at her house, burning and crumbling before us. It spread from the house next door. The wind was strong, and the fire spread quickly, they said. We didn't even have anything flammable. Numerous fire trucks were on the scene, fighting fiercely against the flames, but her house was engulfed, showing no signs of being saved soon. The wind was strong, occasionally sending sparks flying our way.
It's dangerous here, why don't we go to my place for now? You won't be able to enter the house even after the fire dies down.
Mia looked at me, hesitating. Her face showing a reluctance to be involved with me.
I somehow understand you've been avoiding me. But we can't just stand here forever.
After my words, she finally agreed to move. We hurried towards my home.
By the way, what was that about a Hawaii trip? I thought you were off to Hawaii with Ethan today.
Ethan said that?
Yes. He said it was to celebrate your 60th birthday.
I haven't heard a word about it. We were both confused by our completely mismatched stories. It was a misunderstanding arranged by Ethan.
Ethan told me that you were pushing all the housework onto him and going out with other men. He even said you were trying to borrow money from me, and I should avoid contacting you. That's all lies. When the fire spread to the house, I couldn't reach Ethan by phone. I thought you might know where he is. I never imagined he'd be on a Hawaii trip.
I couldn't fathom why Ethan would lie to keep me and Mia apart. But for Ethan, keeping us disconnected probably served his purposes.
Mia, it's all a misunderstanding. Ethan quit his job to become a writer, but he never writes. He doesn't do housework and just sleeps all day.
Oh, so we've been deceived by him. Perhaps she has been harbored doubts about Ethan. She readily accepted my words. If Ethan hadn't gone to Hawaii with Mia, had he taken the money for two and gone alone? Or maybe with someone else? Anyway, nothing could be done until he returned from his trip. I'll confront him thoroughly when he gets back. That night, Mia and I spent a long time talking, catching up on everything we'd missed. The firefighters had informed us that it was inevitable that the house burned down, so she agreed to stay at my place until she found a new home. The more we talked, the more Ethan's web of lies unraveled. It was unbelievable how he had badmouthed me, even though I was handling both work and all the housework. Mia kept apologizing to me. But it wasn't her fault, it was Ethan's. We waited for Ethan to return.
What's this all about?
For days later, Ethan, oblivious to everything, cheerfully returned home, only to be dragged by Mia and me to the remains of Mia's house. Ethan was speechless in front of the burnt-out house.
Ethan, you lied to Mia and me, and leisurely went on a Hawaii trip while everything burned down. Lies? What are you talking about?
He was visibly shaken and unsettled. Before I could say anything, Mia stepped forward. Ethan, aren't you ashamed? Lying to Lily to get money. Who did you go on the trip with? Her anger was fierce, and I involuntarily stepped back. At first, Ethan tried to retort, but the glares from both Mia and me left him speechless.
Wouldn't it be better to just admit it? If we go to court like the commitment form says, you'll lose immediately. I haven't said I won't pay it back yet. You never intended to, right? I know about your real job, Ethan.
He glared at me, trying to hide his panic.
What are you talking about? Rent a boyfriend. Did you enjoy your trip with your client? If your company finds out, you'll be fired for violating the rules.
At my accusation, he gasped. Mia had told me about his secret job the night she stayed at my place. She didn't know what he did, but she mentioned he often came to her house with envelopes bearing a store's logo. Relying on her memories, I found a Rent-A-Boyfriend website. Though his mouth was covered with a heart stamp in the pictures, it was clearly Ethan, and he seemed to be quite popular in sales. I admit I've been working, but the trip was different. As he tried to resist, I showed him the screen of my mobile phone. He looked at the image and stood there, stunned.
That dumb woman. It was a disaster that you went on a trip with her.
On the screen was a photo of Ethan lying on a Hawaiian beach, smiling next to an unfamiliar woman. The date was from 2 days ago. The woman, mistaking Ethan as her real boyfriend, had probably uploaded the photo to social media. Apparently having no idea about the photo, he hung his head in defeat. With evidence laid bare, there was no escape for him. Ethan, trembling, fell to his knees. Please forgive me. I looked at Ethan's apology with a cold gaze. Mia, too, looked at his disgrace with a chilly stare.
Sorry, but I have no intention of forgiving you.
I brushed off Ethan as he begged for forgiveness, insisting that he was sorry. I turned to Mia, who continued to glare at Ethan with anger in her eyes. Ethan had been working secretly as a rent-a-boyfriend, and most of his earnings were lost to gambling. I confronted Ethan about his secret purchases of lottery tickets after he promised to work harder, and I decided to file for divorce. We agreed that he would pay back the borrowed travel money with interest. Mia, realizing his earnings as a rent-a-boyfriend, demanded he contribute to the rebuilding of her house. Though the fire had started from the neighboring house, its rapid spread was partly due to Ethan's actions. Apparently, he kept all the things he couldn't bring to our house in his room at Mia's house. This included stylish clothes for his rent-a-boyfriend job, scented candles, and trinkets that women like. His room was so filled that Mia had warned him several times, but he angrily refused to let her in, almost becoming violent. She tried to avoid his room as much as possible. Before leaving for his trip, he had rummaged through his room to get ready, leaving the dusty window open. He forgot to close it, and after the fire started, sparks flew into the room on the wind, quickly engulfing it. If he had closed the window or kept his room tidy, the fire might not have spread so badly. Although the neighboring house was primarily to blame for the fire, Mia, fueled by her anger at being deceived, demanded that he should compensate her at least partially. Ethan, intimidated by Mia and my collection efforts, apparently had been making quite a lot as a rent-a-boyfriend. He bragged about being able to pay off the debt easily, but he was fired from his job and faced a lawsuit for damages. At his rent-a-boyfriend agency, it was forbidden to go on overnight trips with clients. Meeting them without the company's knowledge and posting about dates on social media were also against the rules. He broke all these rules, leading to his dismissal. A client who had chosen him became furious after seeing the social media post from the woman he went to Hawaii with. This led to a loss of regular clients, and the company sued him for damages. Having once earned a high income as a rent-a-boyfriend, he was disillusioned with normal job salaries and struggled to find employment. However, he was eventually forced to use his savings and take part-time jobs to pay off his debts to various parties. Mia decided to live with me until her house was rebuilt. She took over the household chores, freeing me up from my busy work schedule. On weekends, we enjoyed movies together. Once my major project at work is completed, I plan to take a long vacation and fulfill her wish to go on a trip. Although I divorced Ethan, Mia and I found we had a lot in common and would like to maintain our good relationship.